Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the book, Work, A History of How We Spend Our Time, by James Suzman. Since its publication, this book has sparked widespread discussion globally. By comparing working practices across different stages of human social development, the author provides an in-depth analysis on the essence of work. This leads us to reflect on the misconceptions modern society has about work, and to re-examine the relationship between work and life. It is definitely worth reading. The author James Suzman is a professor of anthropology at the University of Cambridge. He spent many years researching the most primitive hunter-gatherer tribes in Africa. Through comparative studies, he discovered that throughout the long course of human development, the amount of time spent working and the nature of work have changed tremendously. Let's first look at working conditions in primitive societies. In the hunting and gathering era, humans mainly relied on hunting, foraging and fishing for food. Archaeological findings show that primitive people were not as destitute as we imagine. This is because they lived in resource-abundant natural environments and did not have many material desires driving them. The author found through his research of African hunting and gathering tribes that adults spent only 15–20 hours a week working, and much of their remaining time was spent socializing, resting and relaxing. The fundamental reason for this phenomenon is that primitive societies practiced an absolute egalitarianism. All food and goods within a tribe were collectively owned. Anyone could take whatever they needed whenever they wished. When a tribe member obtained game, he would not keep it for himself but share it equally with others. They could not accumulate wealth and thus had no motive to overwork. This way of life can be traced back to hundreds of thousands of years ago, accounting for over 90% of human developmental history. However, everything changed with the advent of agricultural civilization. Primitive people gradually settled down and started farming. This altered human perception of time and space. What farmers faced was no longer instant food rewards. They had to wait months after sowing seeds before they could harvest. In the meantime, future risks needed to be managed. Storing grains became a necessity to cope with possible famines. At the same time, they had to build facilities like houses and granaries to modify space. All these required massive inputs of time and labor. More importantly, agricultural products were no longer nature's gifts, but the returns farmers earned through their hard toil. They became private property instead of being shared equally. Thus, accumulation of material wealth and social stratification also emerged. To accumulate more wealth, people had no choice but to work ceaselessly. It can be said that the agricultural society laid the ideological foundation for today's work is life mindset. Being busy and working hard became the norm, and people had to work diligently to ensure survival. This pattern started with the agricultural civilization and lasted for thousands of years. The Industrial Revolution had an even greater impact on the relationship between human and work. It tremendously stimulated human desires, with consumerism engulfing society as a whole. Through advertising and news, people learned about upper-class lifestyles and tried to obtain more wealth to reach that level. Thus began the endless pursuit of efficiency. However, advancements in technology and management models did not alleviate human labor. On the contrary, working hours increased for many people. On one hand, businesses wanted to extract more surplus value from workers. On the other hand, workers themselves also wanted to work overtime to earn more income to satisfy desires. Overwork and consumerism became the norm, with many falling into the vicious cycle of money worship. Of course, a small number of people started contemplating work, a history of how we spend our time. Their motivation was no longer earning money or competing, but engaging in meaningful careers and achieving self-worth. This has gradually become the mainstream work ethic in modern society. In summary, the extension of working hours and changes in the nature of work are both products of civilization development. The prevalent work anxiety in today's society stems from our misunderstanding of work. We need to reduce unnecessary desires, focus on the intrinsic meaning of work, and achieve work-life balance. James Suzman's book, Work, A History of How We Spend Our Time, profoundly reflects on how contemporary society misinterprets work. It is worth carefully contemplating and rereading for everyone. If you also want to re-examine your own work practices, I highly recommend purchasing and reading this book. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. See you next time.